Art has always accompanied the search for the human in us. That's probably one reason why it did come out of some religious affiliations. And in America, and in the journey I just told you about, music, photography, films, theater played an incredibly important part in the civil rights movement. And so one of my earlier plays, Twilight Los Angeles, was about the riot that took place in Los Angeles when Rodney King, a black motorist, was beaten by 4 cops, and it was caught on videotape. Now that's like, you know, that, as we know, tragically, that happens all the time. People have iPhone capturings of this. But that video that George Holliday, man out on his balcony, happened to take of Rodney King, and it went all over the world for a year. Everybody was just like, these 4 police officers are going to go to jail, and they didn't. The first verdict that came back was not guilty on all 4 police officers. People couldn't believe it, and the city exploded into this large race riot. Some people called it a revolution. You had to be really careful, at least I did when I went there to write my play. Every time I interviewed somebody, I'd say, well, by the way, what did you call this? Because if I called it a riot and it was a revolution, well, that person didn't want to talk to me. I appreciated how the politicians talked about it. They called it the events in Los Angeles. But the curious thing to me about the revolution in Los Angeles was that there was no music. There was no anthem. There was no "We Shall Overcome." There was no song, and I thought this was so odd as I put that play together. And so I went to talk to Jessye Norman, who is, as you know, a great opera singer, and I knew she'd grown up in the South, and so she would understand my confusion that I had heard no song. And so I went to talk to her, and I tape recorded the interview, as I always do, and learned it. And she's a character, so-called character. She's a portrait in Twilight Los Angeles. But I love what I'm going to now quote at length of Jessye Norman, because let's think about what happens if there is no apparent singing, no apparent art in a moment of crisis. What does that indicate? So this is called Roar. I give everything a title, and again, from my tape recorder. I mean, it's all confusion. And the more we talk about this, the more facets of this confusion I can understand and see. I was coming back after having given a performance in Seattle. So I was in Los Angeles on the day of the riot. And some friends of mine who are very involved in things having to do with civil rights said, you know, you ought to stay. I said, I can't, I have to. You know, I'm in the middle of a tour, I can't. So I was on the plane thinking, well, gosh, I didn't have time to stay in Los Angeles, and what would I have done anyway? Besides go to somebody's church and sing a few songs, what could I have done? Except to talk or to sing to somebody who would listen to me, and I don't think that people were in the mood to sing at that time. But of course, in the civil rights movement, you'd sing first. And then you would organize whatever, you know, protest was happening that week or day or whatever, and you would sing at the end of it as well. And you'd sing all through it. Black people have a great tradition of singing. I mean, this is how the spiritual came into being, that in order to deal with this unbelievable situation of being transported from one's homeland and being made a slave, we had to sing ourselves through that. We didn't sing ourselves out of it. We sang ourselves through it. But I think that if I were a person already, you know, a teenager, sort of a youngster, 20 or something, and I felt I were being heard for the first time, it would not be singing as we know it. It would be a roar.
Oh, I think it would be a roar. Oh, it would come. Oh, it would come from the bottom of my feet. It would be, I really think that it would be like a lion just roaring. It wouldn't be singing as we know it. It wouldn't be words. It would just be like the earth's first utterance. I really do feel so. That's Jessye Norman.